This is more than just an ocean dweller. It is the ultimate intellect beneath the waves. Beyond raw speed, they move with tactical unity. Every sound is a blueprint, every pulse a calculated strike. Once the circle closes, escape is no longer an option. And when the surface erupts, the ocean remembers who the true master is. The orca is not only a predator, it is a family shaped by memory, resilience, and bonds built over time. Each adult can reach about 30 feet in length and weigh more than 10,000 pounds. Beneath the surface, clicking sounds act like coded signals, allowing the pod to communicate, locate one another, and absorb tactics as a shared instinct. Within the ecological cycle, the orca stands at the top of the food chain, reminding that true strength is always paired with discipline. Each year, as winter spreads across the North Pacific, gray whales begin the longest migration of any marine mammal. From the cold waters of the Bering and Chukchi seas, they travel more than 12,000 miles south toward the warm lagoons of Baja California for a mother gray whale, weighing roughly 5 times as much as an adult orca. This journey becomes a survival-critical escort for a newborn calf. Along the west coast of North America, the route passes through what is often called the ocean's corridor of risk. Here, pods of orcas appear as silent sentinels. They work in coordinated groups, patiently tracking the mother and calf, repeatedly testing the fragile protective formation. The pressure does not unfold in chaos, but over hours or even days, through repeated harassment designed to wear down endurance and breathing rhythm. If the mother slows for only a few minutes, even a small opening can tip the balance toward the hunters. But if she maintains steady breathing, stays close to the shoreline, and keeps the calf within formation, both can slip free, continue the journey, and preserve the chance of survival for the next generation. At an ecological scale, the orca is more than a hunter. It acts as an unseen regulator, helping keep gray whale populations within the limits the ocean can sustain. The Pacific lies deep and quiet, where a massive silhouette glides slowly past. The blue whale, the largest animal ever known, reaching about 98 feet in length and weighing close to 400,000 pounds. A heart the size of a small car beats steadily, driving life through a body that stands like a living monument in the open ocean. In such vast space, that size appears almost untouchable. But within the contest of survival, greatness can become a burden. From the darker water, black and white shapes emerge in silence. A pod of orcas. They do not rely on sheer force, but on the ocean's most formidable asset: collective intelligence. The encounter does not begin with chaos, but with measured discipline. The lead individual controls the tempo. Several surge forward to cut angles and draw attention, while others move along the flank, taking turns applying pressure near the blowhole, turning access to air into a limiting factor. The rotation in the water continues. The blue whale responds with powerful tail movements, generating thrust measured in thousands of foot-pounds. Yet individual strength cannot reverse the situation. As the struggle fades into the surrounding foam, a new order takes shape. Beneath the weight of the ocean, sheer size yields to strategy. Here, dominance belongs not to the largest, but to the one that controls the game. Within the deep blue ocean, a biological paradox unfolds. Killer whales and dolphins, two of the most advanced members of the Delphinidae family, find themselves opposed in a strategic contest for survival. They share a complex communication system, yet when resources narrow, kinship yields to the logic of top-tier predation. What sets the orca apart is its ability to neutralize the intelligence of its counterpart. As dolphin groups attempt to break away at speeds near 20 miles per hour, the orcas do not pursue blindly. They deploy a pincer formation, using sound to disrupt coordination and split the opposing group. Once a dolphin weighing around 800 pounds becomes isolated, the orca accelerates to speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. Rather than relying on teeth, it uses massive kinetic force, releasing tens of thousands of foot-pounds of energy through precisely placed body strikes. At this stage, raw power serves only as a tool to execute a plan calculated well in advance. Ocean order is restored not through cruelty, but through the dominance of strategic thinking. In these depths, even advanced intelligence yields to a more complete mastery of the hunt. South of the 50th parallel, around the sub-Antarctic island chains, the ocean moves on a fragile balance of energy, time, and risk. On cold gray sandbars, groups of adult sea lions, each weighing close to 800 pounds, lie packed tightly together to retain heat, recovering from long foraging journeys. The clustering offers protection from the cold, but it also creates a fixed point on another hunter's map. Beneath the cold, deep water, a single orca separates from the pod. It does not rush forward. The orca studies the shoreline, reads wind direction, measures wave rhythm, and waits for the precise tidal cycle. When the water reaches its highest point, the opportunity appears. At speeds near 30 miles per hour, The orca uses the force of the wave to surge onto the beach. The approach unfolds within seconds, fast enough for jaw pressure, estimated at around 19,000 pounds per square inch, to disable the target. Moments later, a powerful tailstroke generates the thrust needed to carry the massive body back into deeper water. A minor miscalculation would be enough to turn the hunter's move into a high-risk trap. If the prey manages to reach open water, the strategy shifts immediately. The orca relies on body mass and controlled contact to disrupt movement, gradually draining strength over time. When the surface finally settles, ecological order is restored. The ocean does not reward reckless risk, but favors those that wait, calculate, and command the rhythm of the encounter. The Weddell Sea opens like a white desert, where isolated ice floes become temporary fortresses amid the Antarctic wind. On a flat sheet of ice, a seal weighing around 600 pounds rests, trusting the ice edge as the final safe boundary between itself and the frozen ocean. Yet just beneath the calm gray-blue water, a hunting strategy is quietly taking shape. The orcapod does not attack head-on. The most experienced individuals assemble, aligning in formation parallel to the ice edge. With precise coordination, the group accelerates together to roughly 25 miles per hour, driving a massive volume of water forward like an advancing wall. When wave rhythm and ice angle reach the optimal point, the compressed force generates a mechanical surge strong enough to sweep across the ice, removing the prey's final shield. As the seal enters the water, the next phase activates immediately. The orcas create dense rings of bubbles, narrowing space and disorienting the prey during critical seconds. In this environment, panic equals disadvantage. Off the coast of Gansbaai, South Africa, where ocean currents intersect, the great white shark moves like a perfectly tuned biological machine. Weighing roughly 5,000 pounds, its torpedo-shaped body is wrapped in textured skin that minimizes water disturbance. With an estimated bite force near 4,000 pounds per square inch, and natural camouflage formed by a gray back and white underside, it was long seen as an untouchable symbol of ocean dominance. That balance, however, has been reshaped by another force. A pod of orcas arrives in silence, moving like a patrol unit. They do not need to outrun the shark. They need to close its exits. Using echolocation, the orcas map their opponent and focus on the liver, the shark's most valuable energy reserve. When the timing aligns, the lead individual delivers a powerful strike, from a blind angle beneath the body, sending disruptive impulses through the shark's senses. In that instant, a controlled push from the side shifts the shark off balance and turns it fully upside down. A state known as tonic immobility is triggered, causing temporary paralysis, a brief gap in response. The encounter concludes quickly, providing roughly 2 million calories, enough to sustain an adult orca for several days. In the raw intensity of the wild, the grizzly bear is not just an animal. It is a force of nature. One sweeping strike cuts through the moment, making even the toughest rivals hesitate and back away. There is no softness here, only a sudden surge of power and instinctive control. Beneath that massive presence, resistance can feel pointless. And today, the deep silence of the forest will be broken by a single misstep. In the Northwest, as river water starts to chill, Alaska enters the spectacular salmon run. Millions leave the Pacific Ocean and push more than 500 miles upstream to reach their spawning grounds. For the grizzly bear, this marks the start of hyperphagia, a life-sustaining cycle of intense feeding before a brutal winter. Beside waterfalls just a few feet high, the grizzly bear stands like a landmark in the rushing current. It does not waste energy chasing. Instead, it waits for perfect timing as salmon launch from the surface and drop straight into its zone of control. One decisive sweep of a paw or a quick, efficient step forward is enough to confirm the river's dominance. As autumn begins to close, the feeding approach shifts in subtle ways. The grizzly bear moves down into shallow stretches where salmon are worn down after the long journey. Now it becomes more selective, favoring the most energy-rich parts, like fatty tissue and roe, essential nutrients for building a fat layer more than about 4 inches thick beneath the skin. Even though it can eat up to 100 pounds of food per day, it rarely takes everything. What remains is carried by the river. Nutrients seep into the forest soil, continuing to feed plants and supporting future generations of migrants. As the weather turns colder, these giants weighing over 800 pounds begin shifting their focus from berry patches to more reliable sources of protein. Their rivals are deer, agile animals with the stamina to hold distance for miles. Knowing the limits of endurance, the grizzly bear gives up extreme long chases. Instead, it reads the terrain like a true tactical map. It uses 30-degree slopes, narrow trails, or dense brush, where one mistimed step can break the prey's formation and scatter the group. When the moment is right, the grizzly bear unleashes top speed over a short distance, pinning the target against the landscape's natural squeeze points to take control. In this country, raw strength is only the baseline. Tactical thinking and persistence are what keep the grizzly bear at the top of North America's ecosystem. Grizzly bears are naturally proud, solitary animals across vast open country. But in the harsh north, when survival hotspots appear, like a narrow river packed with salmon or energy-rich feeding grounds, the safe distance between individuals gets compressed. In that tight space, conflict is less about raw aggression and more about the only language available to establish a temporary social order. Most confrontations end before they truly escalate. A locked stare, shoulders raised, a slow step forward to display authority. A deep rumble and a close approach are often enough to make the weaker bear back away and yield the better position. When neither bear accepts retreat, the encounter heats up in controlled stages. They circle, measure distance, then make short shoves to test the other's response. Every movement happens fast and decisive, but still kept within control. In winter, cold below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, real victory is not a dramatic fight. It is keeping the body intact to endure the hard months ahead. The strongest bear is not the most reckless. It is the one that controls its own power, knowing when to show presence and when to step back to survive for tomorrow. In the Brooks Range, the porcupine caribou herd moves like a living current through the valleys, steady, disciplined, and always using cold winds to help mask its trail. At around 400 pounds, each animal carries wide hooves that work like natural snowshoes, making travel across slushy snow and soft ground far easier. In urgent moments, the herd's burst of speed can still help it clear dangers out on open country. Behind that moving current, the grizzly bear watches with patient, opportunistic focus. Even though most of its diet is plant-based, during seasonal shifts, caribou become essential fuel. Despite its heavy build, a grizzly bear can surge up to about 35 miles per hour in short rushes, turning a few seconds of inattention into a high-pressure chase. Rather than wasting energy on the entire herd, the bear targets weaker lynx, calves, or individuals that fall out of rhythm. When the herd is pushed into deep snow or towards the water's edge, the caribou's speed advantage starts to fade. That is when the balance of survival tilts toward the one willing to wait for the decisive moment. In the northern wilderness, gray wolves act like architects that regulate the tempo of survival. A pack of about 10 moves in a strict tactical formation, holding a steady pace near 35 miles per hour in relentless pursuits. With iron discipline, they tighten the ring, make a lightning close approach, then pull back again. A calculated, probing dance that asserts their presence around a food source. But when brutal winter clamps down, tension rises with every step of the grizzly bear. If the bear decides to hold its ground, the balance shifts instantly. It lifts its shoulders and turns its massive body sideways to form a solid moving barrier. With a single sweeping motion from claws about 4 inches long, the grizzly bear marks a clear no-go zone, challenging every intention from its rivals. Discipline keeps wolves persistent, but they understand one small mistake can come with severe consequences. The pack keeps its distance, waiting with patience instead of forcing the issue. The grizzly bear also avoids a long chase to conserve precious calories. In extreme cold, the winner is not the loudest, but the one that controls distance and timing with the greatest precision. In Alaska's backcountry, the grizzly bear meets a moving wall, the moose. A full-grown bull can stand over 6 feet at the shoulder and weigh up to around 1,500 pounds. Antlers spreading nearly 5 feet wide turn each step into a clear message, enough to make even the boldest rivals think twice. The grizzly bear understands that power does not mean charging straight in. It keeps distance, circles along the forest edge, and follows quietly through cold marshland. The focus is often a younger animal, or one falling out of rhythm from fatigue. Deep mud and slushy snow become allies of the patient hunter, slowing quick turns and reducing the advantage of long strides. But against a resilient adult, every close approach is a calculated risk. A single strike from the front legs can leave a predator drained for days. So the grizzly bear chooses to pull back and conserve energy. In the wild, knowing when to retreat is a top-level survival strategy. When North American winter arrives and temperatures drop well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, the grizzly bear enters a long hibernation period. Before that, it has built up a thick layer of fat like a stored power reserve, both insulating the body and fueling it through months without feeding. Over roughly 6 months, its pace of life slows noticeably. Heart rate drops, breathing becomes less frequent, and the body shifts into maximum energy-saving mode. For a mother bear, this is also the time when she gives birth in the quiet of a snow den. Newborn cubs weigh about 1 pound, resting close to her and growing on nutrient-rich milk. Hibernation is not just sleep. It is a refined survival strategy. When the ice melts, the bear leaves the den, and a new cycle begins. The Arctic is not just a frozen wilderness. It is an arena where strength determines survival. A polar bear moves forward in silence, every sense sharpened to its limit. In a sudden surge, sheer weight and instinct take control of the pursuit. Yet dominance is never guaranteed. Another presence is already waiting to claim its share. In this numbing cold, the throne of ice doesn't belong to the slow. In the White Kingdom, 6 seal lineages form a lifeline for the entire ecosystem. Among them, the ringed seal, about 5 feet long and weighing roughly 150 pounds, stands as the most critical link. To endure beneath thick sea ice, it maintains narrow breathing holes only 8 inches wide, a biological structure that sustains life, yet also creates vulnerability. Just above the frozen surface, the polar bear begins its silent ritual. With paws nearly 12 inches across acting as natural shock absorbers, the predator moves without sound, sensing subtle shifts in the wind from as far as half a mile away. It pauses, lowers its body, and compresses every motion into stillness. When the seal rises for air, the quiet instantly breaks. In less than a second, a swift strike removes any chance to retreat. Hunting does not occur on ice alone. When the floes fracture into drifting fragments, the polar bear shifts roles, becoming a powerful swimmer capable of traveling dozens of miles through 28-degree water. It approaches resting seals on isolated ice, using wind direction and current to narrow the distance, until the only response left is a reflexive slide back into the sea. At the far north, every breathing hole becomes a crossroads of survival, linking ice, ocean, and fragile rhythm. And the one who endures, the one who understands the silence of ice and the timing of the sea, continues forward through the endless winter. Across the frozen tundra, where temperatures often drop to -30 degrees Fahrenheit, the reindeer stands as a symbol of northern endurance. Each year, the herd travels more than 2,000 miles, carrying antlers weighing nearly 30 pounds and wide hooves that spread weight across soft snow. The polar bear, the quiet ruler of the Arctic, represents extreme adaptation, relying not on speed but on strategy. Weighing around 1,500 pounds, it studies wind and terrain, using 40-mile-per-hour gusts to blur sound and scent. That advantage allows the predator to approach individuals that fall behind or grow fatigued during the long migration. When the herd is pressed toward shallow ice-rimmed lakes, its mobility begins to fade. Slippery surfaces and frigid water disrupt the running rhythm, while a layer of fat more than 4 inches thick helps the bear maintain steady pressure. In a precisely timed surge, the advantage shifts decisively. In the stark silence of the North, this is not merely a meal, it is the outcome of strategy, opportunity, and the fragile balance at the top of the world. At glacial river mouths, where the ocean meets the land, the beluga appears like quiet white ribbons moving through cold gray water. Each individual weighs around 3,000 pounds, traveling in pods and using the tides to move in and out of shallow bays. When the water recedes, isolated pools can become natural traps. Late winter or early summer brings conditions that allow rare encounters. The polar bear climbs onto a rock ledge about 10 feet high, patiently observing the surface below. When a slight ripple forms and a white head rises for air, the decisive moment arrives. Claws nearly 2 inches long, supported by powerful shoulder muscles, secure control in shallow water. A bite force estimated at around 1,200 pounds per square inch can firmly prevent escape. Even so, this strategy depends entirely on tidal rhythm and occurs only in limited situations. Along the fragile boundary between water and ice, this is not merely a display of strength, but a test of patience and terrain awareness. If the opportunity passes, the bear withdraws quietly and continues along the coastline in search of another chance. Along the gravel shores of the Arctic Ocean, the walrus appears like a living fortress. Weighing around 3,700 pounds as an adult, with tusks stretching close to 3 feet, it signals clearly that it is no easy target. When the herd presses tightly together, it forms a moving wall of defense. For that reason, the polar bear does not charge in seeking a quick finish. It studies the formation, searching for a gap in the herd's order. When the moment comes, it moves along the edge to trigger confusion, pushing the group toward the sea. In that brief disruption lies the real opportunity, a young individual falling out of sync. The bear closes in and delivers decisive forward swipes. In the polar region, every minute of pursuit burns thousands of calories, turning walrus hunts into costly risks, with success rates often below 10%. Strength is not only measured in the approach, but also in the decision to withdraw at the right time. Conserving energy, enduring the season, and waiting for the ice to open another opportunity. The Arctic is an unforgiving land, where survival can turn into harsh confrontation between members of the same species. When sea ice, the lifeline of the hunting grounds, shrinks to only a few scattered square miles, fragile balance begins to collapse. Ritual displays of restraint fade, replaced by cold territorial drive. An encounter begins with a display of strength from two massive bodies weighing more than 1,500 pounds each. Slow advances and low, resonant growls deliver a clear warning. Most confrontations end in demonstration alone. A powerful foreleg strike enough for the smaller bear to retreat, yielding the key to the territory so energy can be preserved. Yet when hunger persists, biology reveals a harsher reality. Cubs may become targets. A mother bear, even at half the rival's weight, immediately positions herself as a living shield between danger and her young. At that point, the struggle is no longer about territory, but about the continuation of lineage. Facing the sharpened teeth of a determined rival, the mother bear launches relentless defensive charges, a powerful reminder that maternal instinct can be one of the most formidable forces on Earth. Summer fractures massive sheets of ice, opening narrow channels that become migration routes for the unicorns of the sea, the narwhal. Weighing around 3,500 pounds and carrying a spiraled tusk that can reach nearly 10 feet, they glide through the cold water like proud shadows of the Northern Ocean. When the tide recedes, the polar bear does not rush. It stands motionless, like a living stone, waiting for a brief lapse as the narwhal pod focuses on Arctic cod near the ice edge. At times, it commits fully with a plunge from nearly 10 feet above, swift, controlled without excess. Yet the frigid sea rarely favors the slower contender. And sometimes, nature balances the scale in another way. A stranded whale becomes a rare source of energy, its blubber measuring about 4 inches thick. There is no triumph, no spectacle, only the quiet transfer of energy continuing its cycle. When summer arrives and drifting sea ice pulls beyond reach, the polar bear enters a new chapter of survival. Moving away from the ocean, the white giant, weighing close to half a ton, begins a demanding journey across some of the harshest terrain on land in search of alternative food sources. At northern streams, the polar bear takes on another role. It stands quietly in frigid water, watching the current and waiting for precise timing. In a swift, accurate sweep, the surface breaks, bringing the brief chase to an end before a silver salmon can clear the rocks. Whether on sheer cliffs or within rushing streams, the polar bear demonstrates remarkable adaptability, the ultimate advantage that allows it to endure in a world that continues to change. A roar tears through the mist, signaling that the decisive hour in this unforgiving arena has arrived. Tensed muscle coils, ready to surge forward in a powerful encircling strike. Each breath carries a challenge. Each stride forward lands like a direct and commanding advance. Without relying on numbers, the lion controls the momentum through precision and firm resolve. When the dust finally settles, the one who delivers the final decisive move stands as the true holder of the crown. On the savanna grasslands, the giraffe is not only a symbol of grace at over 16 feet tall, but also a formidable moving fortress. Its most powerful defense is a kick delivering more than 2,000 pounds of force, enough to make any predator hesitate in an instant. Yet for lions, risk is always tied to significant reward. They often focus on younger individuals or those separated from the group. When opportunity appears, the pride moves in boldly, pressing from multiple directions. A few attempt to latch onto the flank to disrupt the giraffe's rhythm and unbalance its stride. In that critical moment, the long legs strike out in a powerful defensive reaction. The lions do not need to prevail immediately. They only need to apply enough pressure to unsettle the giraffe and expose a brief opening. For a mother giraffe, a defensive kick may unintentionally connect with a calf standing too close, causing it to fall and gradually lose strength. The pride then waits patiently until the mother is forced to move away before stepping in to claim the opportunity. When the dust settles, the savanna returns to stillness. Only the faint whisper of wind remains, carrying the echo of a confrontation where instinct and fate intersect for a fleeting moment. In the Serengeti, sharp, high-pitched laughter echoes across the plains, signaling the start of a tightening encirclement. Adult hyenas, armed with a bite force of nearly 1,100 pounds per square inch, spread out in formation, challenging the fragile order of this land. Their focus is a hard-earned carcass the lionesses secured after hours of exhausting effort. Outnumbered, the lionesses brace themselves against the relentless pressure of nearly 20 coordinated rivals. Tension stretches on until a male lion appears. There is no negotiation. The dominant male surges forward with explosive speed, driving straight through the ring with commanding force. A decisive swipe of his paw disrupts the formation. The leading hyena loses footing, and the entire rhythm of coordination unravels at once. The clan is forced to retreat as a powerful roar rolls across the grasslands. This is not merely a contest over food, but another chapter in a long-standing rivalry. On these plains, peace exists only as a brief pause between confrontations, where hesitation can carry the highest cost. African wild dogs sweep across the savanna like a living arrow, formation tight, turning in perfect unison, with a hunting success rate close to 80% that leaves them with few rivals. Yet at times, that confidence carries the pack too close to an invisible boundary. Within pursuit range, a male lion rests beneath the shade of a tree, amber eyes fixed on the energetic competitors moving through his territory. For him, this is not a moment of sharing, but one of reaffirming territorial control. As the pack crosses his patrol line, a massive frame rises without warning. One individual caught out of sync absorbs a single overpowering strike, and within seconds, the balance of strength is firmly reestablished. The formation breaks. Panicked strides shatter the coordination that once defined their greatest advantage. The lion does not engage in a prolonged chase. Only the slowest link needs to be brought down to restore order. The savanna quickly returns to stillness. In this ecosystem, even among predators, not every species holds the upper hand when distance closes, and order is often reset in brief, decisive encounters. Beneath the blazing sun of the savanna, an epic confrontation unfolds. Proud predators challenge the living fortress of the grasslands, the African elephant. Weighing up to 13,000 pounds, a full-grown adult stands like a moving mountain. Yet today, that mountain is surrounded from every side. Rather than waiting in concealment, nearly 15 lions choose a direct approach. They close in with clearly defined roles, turning the hunt into a calculated campaign. Seasoned lionesses surge from behind, gripping onto skin nearly an inch thick, holding firm through powerful shifts and sudden turns. Other members circle constantly, adjusting angles of pressure and forcing the massive figure to expend energy bit by bit. The adult elephant responds with sweeping trunk movements, powerful and precise, transforming pursuit into a forceful warning. Yet when the focus turns to a younger or weakened individual, the circle tightens quickly. Such rare victories provide sustenance for days, but they also reinforce an unforgiving rule. On the savanna, patience and coordination define the line between survival and disappearance. Across the grasslands, a herd of zebras, like a flowing curtain of stripes, moves through the sea of grass in steady calm. Each individual typically weighs around 770 pounds, with spring-loaded legs capable of reaching speeds over 40 miles per hour. When the herd accelerates together, the overlapping black and white patterns blur distance and direction, forming a collective illusion that guards every stride. For a lion, opportunity is never easy. Only about 25% of hunts lead to success. It does not charge into an intact wall of stripes. It stays low to the ground, waiting for favorable wind and a fleeting gap in the formation. When the distance closes, stillness breaks into pounding hooves and rising dust. The zebras surge forward, striving to maintain their protective formation. The chase lasts only seconds, yet it determines everything. The focus is not the strongest individual, but the one that falters after a long run. A weakness revealed in a single moment. If the attempt fails, the lion withdraws without hesitation, conserving strength for another opportunity. On the savanna, instinct is never wasted. It is refined through every unfinished pursuit. Along the winding rivers of the savanna, the Nile crocodile lies motionless like a drifting log, concealing jaws capable of delivering up to 3,700 psi of bite force, one of the strongest bites on the planet. A single mistimed ripple can turn the water's edge into a life-or-death boundary for any creature that bends down to drink or attempts to cross the current. Yet the dry season reshapes that familiar order. As water levels recede, the marsh predator is forced to remain on land for longer stretches, and that is when a pride of lions enters the scene. They form a wide arc, pressing from behind while blocking the slide back toward the one place that gives the crocodile its advantage: the water. If the encounter happens close to the river, a powerful twist of the body can create an opening for escape. But when the distance from the shoreline grows, the balance shifts toward the hunting cats. After only a few decisive moments of restraint, the ambush predator loses its position. On the savanna, water does more than sustain life. It determines who holds dominance at the boundary between two worlds. And every confrontation here becomes another chapter in the never-ending redistribution of territory. For lions, the buffalo is both rewarding and risky. A mistimed approach can result in serious injury, so they usually hunt as a coordinated group. Lionesses rush in to distract and unsettle the formation, while a male applies pressure, forcing the herd to split or blocking escape routes. When a weaker individual is drawn away from the herd's shield, the pride accelerates, pressing at the flank, holding the shoulder, and seeking control. The success rate against buffalo is only about 30%. Yet when successful, the energy gained can sustain the pride for days. If the attempt fails, the buffalo delivers the lesson. On the savanna, the intended target can become the force that pushes back, reversing the balance through unity and resolve. Majestic, mysterious, and truly powerful. In the vastness of the deep, is there any creature that can defy the flawless strategy of an orca family? If you share my passion for the mysteries of the wild, make sure to hit like and subscribe to join me on our next extraordinary journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.